the content calendar is almost like my Bible, because like, without your content calendar, you'll be left like scrambling every day trying to come up with content, or even worse, like you won't even have content, right? And you're just like a ghost account on social media. And that's what you don't want to be. If you have that content calendar, and if you spend just a few hours a day, like batching some of that content, creating a lot of that content for at least like 2 weeks, it'll make your life so much easier.
Hey, welcome to the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast here on the B Podcast Network. This is a show dedicated to helping higher ed marketers tell better stories, create better content, and enroll more students. My name's John Azzoni. I'm the founder at Unveiled, and we're a video production company working specifically with college marketing teams to make it easy for them to scale up and even automate their student and alumni success stories through our subscription approach. And you can learn more about that at unveiled.tv, and that's UNVEILD.tv. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to have you. And if you're wanting your college or university's content to resonate on a deeper emotional level with prospective students, with alumni, with parents, whatever, I want you to subscribe to my free newsletter. Every week I send out tips and insights on creating more emotionally resonant content, including examples and best practices from other institutions, articles and blog posts, that week's podcast episode, and much more. So head over to unveiled.tv/newsletter and sign up. All right, let's get on with the show. My guest today is Lizzie Chen. Lizzie is the Assistant Director of Digital Media at Moody College and has been there for 5 years. She started as their social media manager and now oversees all the digital storytelling in social media. Before that, she worked in nonprofits and the newsroom. She is also a graduate of Moody College with her master's in journalism. Today, we have Lizzie here to talk to us about the 5 C's to running a social media campaign with limited resources. That's the general topic. I don't know if that's the official title, but that's what we're talking about today. Lizzie, welcome to the show.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me, John.
Absolutely. So introduce yourself. Tell us a little about your creative background, because I know you're also a pretty accomplished photographer and content creator yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've been at Moody for 5 years now. Like you mentioned, I started off as their social media manager, and I grew into like leading the digital storytelling efforts, which includes like video storytelling, creating all our, B-roll, bank photos, photography, and, visuals for our web stories online as well. And I do a lot like outside of work too. So I also freelance. I'm a freelance photographer. I've, been on, published through like numerous like media outlets. And I also teach photography at our local community college here. And so, yeah, really, I just have like, I love like creativity and content creation. And so I don't know what I would do without like creating content.
That's awesome. What kind of photos do you find yourself taking? Like what do people hire you for mostly?
So I love film photography. So definitely it's weird because like when I first started off in photography, it was like a huge, like people were pushing for digital, and I did a lot of digital photography, but now there's this, revival for film photography. So I actually have like, major outlets still hiring me because of like, they love my film photography and they're like, this is the vibe we're going for. So like, and they'll actually pay for like, film and processing fee, which is awesome because that is very expensive.
Very expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like all my personal projects, like, shoot them on film. I'm a huge, fan of Kodak. So definitely shop them out too.
We need to revive Kodak a little bit.
Yes.
I saw they were kind of making a little bit of a comeback. I can't remember what I saw, but it was something.
Yeah. And so they, totally like went bankrupted, like I think a decade ago. But now there's this huge revival because of like social media. And that's what they credit like to this revival of film and love for film is like Gen Z, they've started, taking photos on film and sharing it on social media. And that's definitely something, we use here at Moody. Like I'll have like students go out with like a disposable film camera and I'll get that developed. We'll get it up on social and like people love it. Cause I think students are looking for that it's more like authentic. It's real.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's the thing about film photography that I can't wrap my head around is not being able to see what I just took a picture of.
I love that. That's one thing. Cause like for me, I think it makes you a stronger like photographer. Cause then you're, when we're all shooting digital, you're just like clicking away sometimes. Like I do it all the time. I'm like, why did I spend like 30 minutes like shooting like 1,000 photos, right? Whereas film, you've got like either like 36 exposures or 12 exposures. And so it really forces you to like think about the image you're creating and, composing like that scene that's in front of you.
Yeah. Really picking your moment.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what's something that people would be surprised to know about you, maybe on a personal level?
Personal level, yeah. So I think I'm a huge fan of King of the Hill. And what people don't know is that like I fall asleep every night to King of the Hill. Like it's literally like my sound machine. The only way I can fall asleep is listening to Hank Hill's like voice, like as a lullaby. And so that's why I own all the episodes, and every night, like right before I go to bed, I'll turn on an episode, and like next thing I know, I'm like knocked out. I'll make it like halfway through an episode, and then I'll go back to the next day and rewatch that episode. But a huge King of the Hill fan.
Wow, I got on a King of the Hill spree for a while. It's been a long time since I watched it, but it is a very funny show.
Yeah, and they're gonna have a reboot. So like I know there's been this huge like revival even for a lot of our students. At UT, they've been rewatching King of the Hill to get ready for that reboot. That's
awesome. That's cool. Do you sneak a lot of like Hank Hill memes into Moody's content?
I don't, but I should. Yeah. I do that on my own personal account. I'm always like looking like, oh, this will be so great for social.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So we're talking about the 5 C's to running a social media campaign with limited resources. So I got to ask first, like, tell me about your background, maybe with making things with limited resources. It could be photography with limited resources, video, or managing a social campaign with limited resources. What's kind of been your personal experience with that? Yeah.
So, working like previously, like working in like various like newsrooms or as a journalist, and even in social, in nonprofits, like, those are two like industries where there are like very limited resources, right? And so I've had to think like more creatively about how I can like maximize my resource or my budget or even my time, because like in many of these roles you're wearing multiple hats, right? And same with like higher ed, like we all could use like 10 more people on a team. Mm-hmm. And so my role, like it's all about like planning and really like being extremely organized in like how I plan my day and making sure that like every time is like used like to the max.
Yeah.
And in a beneficial way. And so and I think that's helped me like be more creative about like the type of content we're creating, and also making sure that we have content all the time, even with a very small team. We have content, every day, and that's because of like, lots of planning in advance.
Yes, which we will get to. Content every day is the holy grail. Okay, so we won't give away what the 5 C's are, but the first C, according to you, is community building, both offline and online. So just tell me about that. How did those two bridges of community building connect on like a practical level in a social media campaign?
Yeah. So for me, like, obviously as a social media manager, like we all know that like social media plays an important role in like everyone's lives today, right? I mean, we probably all spend way too much time on social media. I mean, even this last summer, was it May or June? Like, I think the United States, surgeon, he issued like a 19-page document talking about the effects of like social media on teenagers, on young people, and how it impacts their mental health. And as a social media manager, creating content for that population, I'm constantly worried, like, how am I playing a role on their mental health? Like, is this, or how can I bring more joy to their lives? Like, how can I create this community, like help build a community, for them? And so that's why it's important for me to build a community online, but also offline too. And I'll talk more about the offline part later. But at Moody, one of our core values is community building. So I wanted to, implement that into my social media strategy. And so by really being inclusive and giving all students an opportunity to be featured on social media, and I'm talking about your everyday student who doesn't have her 4.0 GPA, but who's still doing great stuff, who's using our skills at their cool internships or at a business that they started. And we also want to include not just our faculty, but also our staff who are often not seen, in public, and also using social media as a resource, not only for like news announcements and events, but also providing resources such as like mental health or like scholarships, financial aid for our students, and also have a background in like journalism and nonprofits, like I mentioned. So like community engagement is something that I really value and enjoy. So I love bringing people together. And that was something, after reading that report from like the U.S. General Surgeon, I was thinking like, how can we create like more like, like make social media this positive tool in our lives. And so this semester I started to do more like using social media to bring people together in person. And so for example, at the beginning of the semester, we invited students to come make bracelets up, friendship bracelets, with our social media team. And that was really because I was inspired by Taylor Swift's, her tours this summer, and also all of the friendship bracelets that her fans were like making and trading with each other. And I thought I could bring that vibe to Moody, and it did really well. At first I was like nervous, like, oh, are people going to come and make bracelets with us? And people actually came, and we had like so many students at our table. And it was just so like magical for me to see like students like have conversations like in real life, because oftentimes as a social media manager, you're communicating with them online or through DM, through comments. And so it's nice to like meet a lot of our students in person and really for them to like have like these conversations with each other that weren't forced. Like they found out they were from like the same hometown, from like the same states, or they're in, the same classes together. So it was just something fun to do that got people like from behind the screens. And that's just one example of like building that community, like, online first, but bringing that into like real life.
That's cool. I mean, a surefire way to get people together is Taylor Swift angle. Oh, yes. Did you go?
I'm actually not even a Taylor Swift fan. Like, I don't know many of her songs, but like I just spend like way too much time on the internet and like trying to like find like, okay, what are people liking? Like, what's popular? And so
it's interesting. It's like we're in the Beatles era of like people freaking out over the Beatles. That's like Taylor Swift right now.
Yes, it really is. Like Taylor Swift and Beyonce,
Beyonce, like the 80s was probably Michael Jackson. What would be the 90s? Spice Girls, maybe. I don't even think
Spice Girls.
I don't even know.
Backstreet Boys. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Obviously, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. Yeah. So, we're living in a moment of history here. My daughter's a huge fan of Taylor Swift. Like, loves her. I like Taylor's music. I actually am a closet like old school Taylor Swift fan. Like I like her country stuff a lot better.
Oh yeah. I do like her country stuff too. Like and so because of like how like popular she's been, I mean she's always been popular, but I feel like lately there's been like this push for her like her music, I went back and listened to some of her music, and I was like, wow, this is actually pretty good. And I'm like secretly in my car, like, blasting Taylor Swift. And then when like someone rolled up next to my car, I'm like, oh, I gotta roll up my windows.
It's cool to like Taylor Swift now. It didn't used to be cool.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. So next C would be creative content and jumping on trends. So tell me about your team's approach to content. And like, why are trends important to your workflow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for us, definitely like creating original content is so important. Like, I mean, part of my job as a social media manager is to really elevate like Moody College brand to like either attract and retain like our diverse talents and also increase awareness for the college, right? So it's been very rewarding to work with our team on like creating original content. And with my video and photography background and storytelling, like making reels and like short videos like came natural to me. And so I think the value of like original content is like priceless because, like you can have like an account with a lot of followers, but if you don't have like engaging content or, original content, you're not going to like stand out among like your industry. And so, I always tell people, try and stay away from Canva. Like that's always my tip, because everyone else is using Canva. So when you're browsing social media, you'll start to see like that same template, just with different fonts or different colors, right? And so for me, like, we try and create everything like in Photoshop, InDesign, or Illustrator so that we're ensuring that our content is unique and original. And I also rely a lot on our interns. And now we have a full-time social media and digital content coordinator who is super talented. She's an illustrator. So we'll have her illustrate a lot of stuff so that it's content that no one else can like duplicate anywhere else. And another tip is for me, like having authentic content is important. So like remembering that we're not creating content for ourselves. Like I'm not creating content for me. Like I'm not the audience, right? So instead of like posting like a headshot of a professor or a headshot of a student, like instead I'll ask that professor, like, hey, send me a photo that your partner took of you on the iPhone, like at a park. And seeing that photo, it does so much, performs so much better than that headshot that people normally post, because you have to put yourself in that student's mind. Like they're often browsing, their feed late at night, and if they see that headshot, they're gonna think like, oh, this is branded content. It's coming from the college. But whereas if they see like that professor in the park, like on an iPhone photo, they're like, oh, hey, cool. This is more relevant, right? So that's another one of my tips is we always try and like post informal photos, or we'll go out there and take the photo. I mean, I'm a photographer, but I'll still take that photo on the iPhone. Yeah. And really, and then as far as like trends, like I rely a lot on our student interns and other staff member to like bring those like trending audios to me, because like since I became a mom, like the algorithm has totally changed. Like now I'm seeing all toddler in my feed. So like it's really like having conversations with people, like tapping into like students or your student interns or even like family members, like, and ask them like, what are the trends? And like, and it's my job to make sure like, okay, how is this trend appropriate? Like, how can we like capitalize on this trend to make sure that we're still meeting like the goals of the college, right? And sometimes I'll even log into like, you can log into your accounts and see like what's showing up on the For You page or what's being fed into your algorithm.
That's a good point. With the algorithm is that it's easy to, I mean, what's trending could very much just be what's in your algorithm. Like in my TikTok algorithm, I get all the like my husband's an idiot kind of things, kind of posts, because like like, oh, I told my husband to do this and he forgot or whatever, you know. Yes. And I share those with my wife all the time. And so it thinks like I'm the audience for that. I think they're hilarious, but that's not necessarily what's trending.
It's true. Yeah. Cause you know, and it's really targeted at you as a user. Cause like sometimes I'll see like the same audio over and over and I'll share it with some of the other staff and they're like, I've never seen this trend because like, you know, everyone we have different trends. So just remembering that what's trending for you may not be trending for like your audience.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I've learned about trends and you can tell me anything on top of this, but like being able to like identify a trend by if you see something that you've maybe seen multiple times, clicking on that. Well, at least on TikTok, you click on like the button in the bottom right where it's like, see other people that have posted this content and like see how many people are using that. If there's like 10,000, 20, 100,000, you're going to get lost in the mix. But the advice that I've heard is like, if it's like 500, 600, like that's a sweet spot to like jump on that trend.
Yeah. So for me, like we'll look at trending audios in two way. Like if it's one that's, you know, got like millions of like uses, you know, definitely we'll jump on that trend. Cause I think sometimes like the higher number, like it's still like relevant enough to where if you share it, like, you know, someone will watch that and
your audience will know that one.
We'll know that one. But yeah, like sometimes if it's like a few thousands, like that's also for me a good time to jump on that trend so that you're not lost in like the mix. Cause like, yeah, for me, when I'm looking at, you know, audios, I like to click on what other users are looking at this. And now I'll kind of like scroll through like, okay, like this is how they're using this trend. But for us, like at Moody, like, because we're in the higher ed sphere, like I'm always like looking at trends and memes and making sure that, and just knowing that not all trends are appropriate because, you know, you don't want to stereotype people. You don't want to like make people feel uncomfortable. You know, what's funny for the general masses may not be funny in higher ed. Right. And so, but we'll use trends to like, and humor to like remind people about deadlines or remind students about like resources that are available or using it to like highlight our like, you know, directors and chairs who are often not seen, you know, on social media. And, you know, by having them do like something silly, like, or showing off their outfits or, you know, a dance, like it also humanizes our college leadership and, you know, they're not seen as like, oh, there's, you know, someone who sits up on, you know,
not unapproachable,
the fifth floor, you know, and so it really like humanizes them and that allows the students to connect more to our college leadership.
Yeah, and I think with on the topic of trends, there's one like thing that I notice is it's a really fine line between being because you talked about creating original content that people aren't copying. It's a fine line between being original and being appropriate and being relevant to your students, and also you know, creating stuff that's just played out, because it's easy to just copy the trend and do exactly what everyone else is doing with that. What I appreciate in my feed is like, you know, there's a trending sound or something, but someone has a new take on it, to some new take on it. Yes. This new thing in life that's funny that that's relatable that I didn't think of. But what drives me nuts is like, you know, I get a lot of like moms with their kids kind of trends, and like they all do the same dance the same way, or or some funny audio, and they just do it the exact same way everyone else. And I'm flipping through, I'm like, okay, you can do it too. Okay, got it. Yes. Bye. And that drives me nuts. So that's when that
drives me crazy too. And so like, so we're always trying to like, okay, like let's not copy exactly what they're doing, but like let's have our own like take on it. And then even for me, like how can we make something different by using that trend so that, you know, you kind of make that user like stop, you know, and like watch and not just be like, oh, it's another, you know, it's the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
But again, really like tying it all back to like Moody College and what we're here for.
So then you run the risk too with the trends, I think, of trying to chime in on a trend and coming across like really out of touch, or like,
yes,
God forbid, cringe, like a brand's coming in here and trying to do this cool thing that the kids are doing, and it just does not land. Like how do you guys at Moody kind of, when you're thinking through trends, think about how can we appropriately tie this back to the brand?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, we don't jump on all trends. 'Cause again, like, I'm always like worried, like, okay, we don't want to like stereotype people. We don't want to, make people feel uncomfortable, or, sometimes a lot of these trending audios, like, they're, you don't want to poke fun at like,
right.
A certain group, or, and so we'll always, make sure like, okay, like, how can we use this to like, elevate our brand or help amplify, people at the college, or use it as a resource. And so a lot of times, like, our interns will bring me training audios, and then I'll kind of sit through and, be like, okay, is this appropriate? Like, are we, we don't want to be seen as like, too silly, or it's like cringy. And so that's why, like, and oftentimes, like, and like anything that we do with our faculty now, like, it always performs really well, because I think students like seeing their professors and like college leadership online, and seeing that they are interacting like in like, in the community.
Yeah, it's like seeing your church pastor in jeans or something.
Yes, or like, I mean, growing up, like, I remember like seeing like my teacher, your elementary school teacher, like at their grocery store. You're like, yeah. What? They eat groceries too? Yeah.
Yeah. I ran into my principal once at CVS with my mom, and then there was just an awkward interaction because it was just like, you're not used to that level of authority in like, down at a CVS. Quick break here to tell you about how you can scale up your student and alumni success stories without taking on a bunch of extra work to manage with our video storytelling subscriptions. Look, making even one video takes a lot of legwork. There's lots of steps to go through to hire a video vendor, herd all the cats, and then you usually get one video out of that. But what if you could do a similar amount of work, but this time get a year's worth of storytelling content that you can use across the board to highlight your various programs, where pretty much all you had to do was find the stories and hand them off, and even that will help you with. Well, at Unveiled, our aim is to take the friction out of telling great stories. So whether you're a big school or a small liberal arts college, you can tell compelling stories all year round and fill your content calendar with video content. And we can get this done for you virtually anywhere in the world, certainly anywhere in the US. The way it works is we're going to batch shoot a year's worth of content, and then every month drip out to you one new student or alumni story, along with a whole package of additional video content. So you'll get the full length story, which is usually 2 to 3 minutes. You'll get a 30-second and a 15-second cut down of that story to use in various shorter contexts. And then you'll get 8 topical videos. And those topical videos are like, while we have this student sitting here on camera, let's ask them whatever we want. We'll work with your school to come up with a list of questions that touch on those things that you like to promote. So maybe it's scholarships or career development opportunities or on-campus housing or whatever it is. So that's the package of videos. You'll get that package every month, every single month. And not only can you take those polished videos that we deliver to you and crop them vertically and, make great TikToks and Reels content, but you get to keep all the raw B-roll and interview footage that we shoot. Imagine the possibilities of 12 students or alumni following them around for half a day in classes, in labs, in whatever other visual contexts. And that's just an entire library of B-roll that you get to use forever and repurpose at no extra charge. It's all included in your subscription. So head over to unveiled.tv, that's unveiled.tv, and check out our work. You can find pricing information there as well. And if you'd like to chat further, you can book a call with me on the website there, and I'd be happy to talk about how we might be able to support you and also answer any questions you may have. Okay, back to the show. So let's recap. We've talked community building offline and online, creative content and jumping on trends. The next one would be communication and trust from upper management. This one's huge. I'm super excited for you to talk about this because I think this is one that I think the majority of colleges probably struggle with on some level is either they struggle to give up control and to trust their team, or they're struggling to get that trust, depending on where they fall in that hierarchy. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I honestly cannot do my job without the trust of our chief marketing and communication officer. So shout out to Kathleen Mabley, because from day one, she trusted me, and I'm so grateful for that. Because like you mentioned, John, talking to other colleagues in this industry and higher ed, that is a huge issue. Is gaining that trust to be able to run the social media accounts, right?
Yeah.
And so from day one, she handed me over the accounts, let me explore them, experiment, build our audience, make mistakes, grow. And now we have a very dynamic community because of that. And I think it's so important for not even your direct supervisor, but college leadership to really understand the value of social media and also to recognize that and to trust the social media managers to do their jobs, right? And I've been so very lucky that we are at a college of communication. So obviously our deans, they value social media. And so that's been just really great for me to have their trust to be able to be creative, because sometimes when you're handcuffed, some of that creativity is harder, to get out, right? Or you may not have, you have to go through so many rounds of approvals that by the time your social media copy, it's completely different than what you had originally, or even as far as jumping on trends, by the time something is approved, that trend has already long gone. Yeah.
Yes.
Gone, right.
The chain of approvals is just the killer of creativity.
Yes, it really is. so I've just been lucky. And for me, what I do is I'll meet with Kathleen and, with our dean to find out what their goals are, at the college level, and how can I be strategic with our social media to meet those goals, and really building the Moody brand, using it to attract prospective students, faculty and staff. And I just think, just using it as a tool to tell great stories and to cultivate that community.
Yeah, I think
great. And also, go ahead.
I was just gonna piggyback off that. Just the idea of you can squash your creative team's creativity very quickly and very easily by telling them what to do and making them go through a bunch of approvals, and just you can extinguish that flame really quickly to where then they don't want to even try. If it's too boxed in, they're like, why bother? I'm just creating.
Why even try? Yeah, they'll just end up, creating a whole bunch of graphics with lots of text, and no one's going to look at it on social media.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than creating something that no one's going to care about. It's just sucks the life out of you. And I think that I had a guest on here that talked about, creating content that should, your content should make some people rub them the wrong way, or so, it doesn't have, I don't agree with the people that say if your content doesn't piss somebody off, you're doing it wrong. I don't think you should necessarily have to ride that line. I don't think we should be so inflammatory or whatever, but I do think that the downfall of the approvals and things like that is that we water a piece of content down to be so appeasable to everybody that it appeals to nobody, and it's just lifeless. And so I think it is important, for leadership. I say this as a creator that, has worked under leadership before, but to define the guardrails, of the values and stuff, and really just let people play in that, let your team play within those guardrails, and just kind of on a macro level, making sure that the team is staying on track.
Oh, yes. And that's something that's so great about, or our dean and Kathleen is, at the very beginning, they, we came up with guidelines, for social media, and and just making sure we're on brand. And so I think when that happens, like your creative juices like flow more, and you're able to like, take those ideas and like trends and like really like maximize that out. And also like, when I mentioned like communication is also important, like open communication, transparency. I think like sometimes in the world of communication, we're not the best at like communicating to each other. But like at, Moody, like, that's, something that like Kathleen and I have with each other is like trust and like open communication. So like, even when like a campaign is not working, I'm able to take like those metrics or hard numbers to her and show her like, is this worth our like budget and time and efforts? And we'll either like rethink that or, think of a new strategy or either kill the project, right? And so that's why transparency and trust have been so appreciated on my end, because it really makes like the job of a social media manager much easier,
Yeah, when you don't really feel like you own the thing that you're leading, then it's demotivating. So yeah, I found you to come on this podcast because of Kathleen Mabley. She's CMO, right, at Moody.
Yes. At Moody College. Yes.
She posted some glowing LinkedIn post and tagged you. And I looked and I'm like, oh, this Lizzie looks really interesting. We'd love to have her on the show. And it was just like, she had just this glowing trust and appreciation for you. And even when I've spoken to her on the phone, she just speaks your praises so highly. And I just imagine working for someone like that is just such a breath of fresh air.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, it really is a breath of fresh air. And I like don't take any of it for granted. And so.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So we talked about communication and trust from upper management, and tell me now about collaboration. That's the fourth C in our sequence here.
Yes. I like to sequence.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like for me, like, yeah, collaboration is so important, like on so many different levels. Like, I mean, first of all, I have to give so many credit for like other people for our great social media, like to former interns, current interns, our social media coordinator, even our graphic design who'll help with like graphics, but mainly our students. Like we can't do our jobs without our students. And really like I'm just using social media as a vehicle for our students to tell their own stories, to really help amplify their voices or our faculty's research, or maybe like an alumni small business. And so for me, it's, collaborating and getting students involved. Oftentimes, like I'll allow the students to, create their own content, which actually saves me a lot of time as creating less content with limited resources. For example, like during the pandemic, I invited students to write handwritten notes about graduating during a pandemic, right? And our community loved those notes so much, like especially in this like digital age and time that we live in. We spend so much time online. And that evolved to be this annual kind of like rite of passage at Moody College. So like every year now we invite graduates to reflect on their time at Moody through a handwritten note. So we'll, share their photo and also their handwritten note. And, because we're the College of Communication, a lot of our graduates, they get really into these notes. Like, we get so many requests every year that we can't feature everyone, unfortunately. But a lot of our graduates, they'll be really creative. They'll like water paint, or they'll do calligraphy. They'll even use like their art directing skills that they learned at Moody to, create a beautiful photograph or set up their letter in this like beautiful frame. So that's one thing, like, one example of how we do collaboration at Moody College. Or even like when we used to do a lot more takeovers, but now we just have students create like a day in a life reel and letting them have control of their own story. And, again, like half of our content strategy is driven by like content that will help meet the goals of the college, but also the other half is really driven by students. And just giving them a chance to participate in a lot of our reels or features and just letting them like tell their stories themselves is one thing I love about collaborating.
Yeah. And speaking of you know, the angle of limited resources, how do you, you know, I feel like getting students to collaborate with the marketing team is like the holy grail of social media situations, because the user generated content it performs super well, especially if you can get that student to post it on their platform to their audience. But like, tell me some ways in which you invite students into the content creation process that kind of saves you guys time and budget and stuff like that.
Yeah. So yeah, several ways. But one main thing is, like, for example, we have a series called Life After Moody, where we feature recent graduates of Moody College within the last 5 years. Because we heard from students that they want to see, you know, it's great to see, like, you know, like graduates who are successful, but, you know, it's always like, you know, they're like CEO or they're a famous actor, but like they want to see where they can be in the next 5 years. You know, in the end, like they always just want jobs, right? And so that's why we started featuring younger alumni, and part of that is, you know, like all of the photos. Like I used to go out and take off those photos myself. Like I'll be like, hey, can I stop by your work? Can I, you know, take all these, you know, take your portrait? But now I just have them send in all those photos themselves, you know, like, you know, I think having like user generated content is so much more like authentic and appealing to our audiences than like me going out and taking those photos.
For sure.
And they perform better. And also when they're sharing it to their stories, like that's how we get a lot more reach and engagement. And for example, another example is like a date on life reel. Like I used to be the one who will like go out and like film all of that content and like edit that together. But now I'm like, I'll just let the student like create their own reel themselves. And that saves me a lot of time. And they're able to like tell their own story in their own way, and also use their own, you know, creativity. And so that's another way that I save time with like creating content.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned pictures, and I think that's not to be like understated. Like it's much easier to get pictures from people than to teach them how to create the right kind of video that you want. But like pictures perform very well. Like we talk a lot about video on this podcast, but I'm actually a big fan of still images, because honestly, some of my best performing stuff like on LinkedIn is just behind the scenes pictures on a shoot, just like nothing special, but just like. Yeah, go ahead.
And I totally agree. Yeah, because like, you know, everyone they're talking about like Reels and TikToks, like, and how they perform so well. And we do have like some of our Reels, they do perform well. But in the end, it's always like a carousel of like iPhone pics that perform the best, you know. Yeah. And, you know, the still images, like people, they want to scroll, they still will scroll through and look at photos. And I'm always like thinking about algorithm, like I'm strategic in like how I post these photos and in the order we post them. Like, for example, on Instagram, like how the algorithm is like, it's the second photo that will show up in your feed, so not the first one.
Oh, interesting.
So I always make sure, yeah. So that's something a lot of people don't know, but it's
I didn't know
the
that
second photo that will show up. Yeah. So I'm always thinking like, okay, the first photo in my carousel can be great, but I want my second photo to be amazing.
Yeah.
That's going to be the one that will like show up in people's feed. And so just like thinking strategically, and also like in a carousel, like, okay, like kind of telling a story and like those 10 photos that they send us. But again, like it's, you know, yeah, still images, they still perform well. I know people love videos, but some of our top posts are always like, you know, a spotlight on either an alum or students.
Yeah.
Featuring still images.
That's awesome. Yeah. The carousels are very powerful. And then, yeah, it's much easier to get a student to just take some selfies of themselves throughout the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, then video can be difficult. Now you got to get into editing the video, you know, and that's like a whole nother,
a lot of time.
Yeah, that's a whole nother ball game. But yeah, so okay, collaboration, and then, but I want to back up a little bit, and I should probably ask you this at the beginning of the episode. But can you tell me about the layout of your team? And I know you mentioned like you always wish you could have like 10 more people, but I'm curious to know like how many hands on deck do you have working on this stuff? And then how can we apply that to these things that we're talking about to a team that maybe is a team of one? You know, that's like the social media manager and the content creator or something like that.
Yeah. So for the longest time, for about like 4 years, it was just a team of one. So it was just me, a social media manager, creating everything. And sometimes I'll have like an intern or two to help. But just recently, I was able to hire on another full-time staff on the social team. So now I've got Leticia, who will also help me with a lot of the like content creation, photography, illustrations. But yeah, before having her, and even before having interns, like, you know, was just me by myself, you know, you kind of have to be like a, you know, jack of all trades, like, you know, videography, photography, graphic design, you know, copy, you know, strategy. And so really my secret to like running a successful like social media account is like just staying extremely organized and planning in advance. But do you want to know more about like the Moody Marcom team at Moody College? So like we've got Kathleen Mabley, who's our chief marketing officer. And then we also have a content coordinator, a graphic designer, a marketing manager and marketing coordinator, and a web developer. And there's me and also our social media digital content coordinator.
And then the platforms that you guys are active on, like where do you prioritize?
Oh, so for social media, we definitely prioritize Instagram because that's where most of our audience, and Instagram and LinkedIn are our two fastest growing platforms. You know, Twitter, X, you know, has been, you know, kind of murky lately.
I've never had anyone on the show that had anything good to say about X.
And you know, Facebook is kind of like, I tell people like, oh, my stepkids or something, because it's, you know, it's one of those platforms where we still post there often, but it's not growing like we are on LinkedIn or Instagram. But we definitely do prioritize like Instagram and LinkedIn. And
LinkedIn for undergrads, or is that for adult learners?
So surprisingly, like a lot of our students are on LinkedIn because like as soon as they love to go on LinkedIn to you know, announce their new internship or announce like, hey, I just got this fellowship or this scholarship. And so that's a really great way. So like, yeah, like LinkedIn is one of our fastest growing platforms because of our current students, but also because of like once our students graduate, you know, these young alumni, they use it often, you know, so yeah, we do prioritize, you know, like community building on these two platforms.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. All right. And you mentioned organization, which is the last C here, consistency and staying organized. So I, as a content creator myself, consistency is huge. In the past, been a big stressor for me. And I know it's a stressor for most marketers that I talk to, but then also just like I've found getting organized to be one of the biggest alleviators of that stress. And then just taking time to batch content. You might have completely different. I'm just spitballing like what comes.
I totally agree with you. Like I do a lot of batching content. So like, yeah, like I always tell people like my secret is like just staying organized and planning well in advance. Like I think I'm one of those like rare like content creators who also happen to be like type A personality. Like I'm very like detail oriented.
Yeah.
Like
oh man, that's a powerhouse right there.
Yeah.
The detailed creative.
Yeah. And so really like without a content calendar, like I do a lot of training at Moody College, like other social media managers. And so like I always tell them like the content calendar is almost like my Bible, because like, you know, without your content calendar, you'll be left like scrambling every day trying to come up with content, or even worse, like you won't even have content, right? And you're just like a ghost account on social media. And
right.
And that's what you don't want to be. And so at Moody, I like try and train and offer guidance for some of our social media managers who have very limited resources. I mean, social media is like a small, tiny part of their jobs.
Right.
And so, and they don't have bandwidth or resources. So I always tell them like, if you have that content calendar and if you spend just a few hours like a day, like batching some of that content, creating a lot of that content for at least like 2 weeks, it'll make your life so much easier. So for example, at the Moody College level, like, one of my tricks is I'll spend a week or two before the semester starts, and I'm already like planning and already gathering all of that content for the entire semester for our plan series. So like, we have, I think, Why Moody, Life After Moody, Moody Spotlights, and Inside a Room. Like that's, 4 like consistent planned series that we have, and that's already all planned through December. So when you already have planned content, you're able to kind of take those like fires that come at you, or requests that comes at you, and work through those without like being stressed or without worrying, okay, do we have other content? And so yeah, that's, one of my tricks is to just stay very organized and like use your content calendar. Like, a lot of people, they'll start a content calendar, but then they'll like quickly fall off it.
Yes.
But just, try and like stay, to use that content calendar and like stick to it.
Yes. That's a hard discipline. I mean, I'm more organized these days. But I also, I always laugh every time I go into my Google Drive, because it's like content ideas _1. And then it's got like a dump of ideas on it. And then I've got like content ideas 2021 or something like that. It's like, I have like these like the same document that I've tried to implement like multiple times, and I start from scratch every time. But yeah, just defining what your rhythm is going to be I think is so important. And two, like one tip that I will share for people that aren't real calendar focused or don't want to think too far ahead. What I do with this podcast is use, like, this is my main content engine. So I'll clip up snippets from this episode. I just load them into Social Pilot, and I have, they're all vertical so that they just kind of fit in all the platforms. And I just have to click like send this to TikTok, Shorts, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And then I have just a template pretty much for like each post from that episode. So I'll create the new template that's like, check out, my episode with Lizzie Chen where we talk about this, and here's some key points. And then the only thing I'm changing with that is the hook. So it might just be like, the hook might just be like, in order to be successful with social media, you have to be consistent. And boom. And then send that to 6 different platforms, and then just let it, you just fill the queue, and it just, on Social Pilot, AI will just kind of like drip stuff out.
Oh yeah.
Which is nice. Cause like, so I don't,
that's awesome.
I personally don't manage any sort of calendar. It's just kind of like, my podcast content is kind of on autopilot. And then anything else I want to jump in there and post on LinkedIn or wherever else is icing on the cake. But that's one way, just to like, if you batch content and just queue it all up, just let a program drip it out, if that's the simplest way to do it. And the other time saving thing, I'm just thinking in terms of, social media managers, or of one, or with little help, AI has been huge for me, to where I can take a podcast episode. Like yesterday, I recorded the episode that will have come out already with Shane Baglini, and I took the transcript from that episode, ran it through Claude. It's Claude.ai. And I told it, write me the show notes, include like relevant links, and then give me 5 LinkedIn posts with time codes, so my editor can just go right to those spots. And then also write me hooks to go with each of these time codes. And it's like, and I swear I got hours of work done in 10 minutes.
Wow. Okay. So I have to admit, like, AI kind of scares me. So I have not touched AI. And also, like, especially as like a creative, like, like with like how they're like manipulating like people's photos and like videos like that. Like, for me, it's more of like an ethical like reason to why I'm not using AI. But
I agree.
I might use it in the future.
I was driving my kids to school today, and there was on some radio program, they played a song that was an AI version of it. They took Drake's voice and someone else's voice. I don't know. And they made like this whole hip hop song, and it's like in the running for a Grammy. And so it's like this thing where it's like, where are we drawing the line? So I'm
yeah,
totally,
like, where are we trying? Yeah, especially for creatives, like, you know, as
Yeah.
artists, you know, like ethically, like how, you know, are we giving credit to people? Are we like paying them?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that scares me about.
I definitely think there's
AI.
a lot to be like concerned about with AI. And for me, like where I get the most use out of it is just in like administrative assistance with, it's like, this is stuff that I would do myself anyways. Like I would go through and I would find the individual time codes and I would, you know, tell my editor what to pull out. And then I would write the social media posts and blah, blah, blah. And it's just kind of like, it's almost just like hiring an intern to do those things.
To do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned earlier, like writing like specific hook for every platform. That brought up like another point I try and tell people is like, I think a lot of social media managers, they make the mistake of like treating all platforms as if they're the same. Like they'll, you know, upload all their copy to Hootsuite and like they'll all publish like it's the same copy for everything. And even like a lot of people like, so I try and like have different copy for everything. And even like Instagram, like, you know, we've got stories and, you know, reels and now threads and in-feed content. Like I treat all four of that like as if there were 4 different platforms, even though it's all Instagram. But because, you know, it's different ways of how people consume content. And so like,
for sure,
you know, having a strategy for each of that is so important to me.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna, like, the thing I like about Social Pilot is you tell it what platforms you're going to post to, but then you still have to manually go through and go, okay, for LinkedIn, here's what I want my post to be. Here's my hashtags. I'm going to tag this person. But Facebook, okay, tags work differently on Facebook. So here's how we're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. So you still have to tell it like each thing to do. But like, you know, for instance, like you can't be like on LinkedIn, I can be like, link below or link in the comments or something like that. But TikTok, if I just let it send that to TikTok, there's no link in the comments, you know. You do have to pay attention. But I agree with you. Like, optimizing for each social platform is really important, because the way that people interact on LinkedIn and the things that they kind of that stop the scroll for them is different than say Instagram or you know, TikTok or whatever.
I'll have you check out Social Pilot. Do you think it's better than Hootsuite?
Hootsuite is, I've never used it only because it's so gosh darn expensive for, you know, someone of my business cash flow. So Social Pilot I think is like $30, but Hootsuite I know it does a bunch of stuff. But Social Pilot is just, I've used over the last year several. Like Buffer, I've used Canva even has their own scheduling feature now. I've used several others, and I've just landed on Social Pilot because it's just been what's fit into my groove the best. Okay, cool. Well, those folks are the 5 C's of running social media with limited resources. And I really appreciate you coming on. Lizzie, it was super great to have you. Tell people where they can find you at.
Oh, so follow us at Texas Moody on Instagram, or you Texas Moody at Twitter. And for me, I'm Lizzie Chen on Instagram.
Okay, we'll put that stuff in the show notes. Thank you so much for being on the show, Lizzie. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. It was nice chatting with you.
Yep, you too. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. 3 things I want to give you before you go. Number 1, reminder to sign up for my free weekly newsletter, all about creating content that resonates emotionally with your audience. And you can do that at unveiled.tv/newsletter. Unveiled is spelled UNVEILD. Number 2, if you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Share it with your team, your boss, your dog, whatever. And if you're not already subscribed, I'd love for you to do that. Number 3, reach out to me. If you have comments, questions, you want to talk about a video project, whatever, my email is john@unveiled.tv. John is spelled JOHN. Or follow me on LinkedIn. If you're searching for me, my last name is spelled AZONI. That's all for today, and I look forward to catching you on the next episode of the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast. Thanks.